This video is brought to you by Grandeur Warranty, your #1 online source for factory-backed extended warranties in the country.
So you're truck curious, you're thinking about getting into trucking. In other words, you're looking at an entry-level truck. Well, I've got two and only two trucks that are small, dare I say compact. To my left is the Hyundai Santa Cruz, and to my right is the Ford Maverick. But there are three things that separate these trucks from each other. In this video, I'm gonna let you know what those are. The Hyundai Santa Cruz is your, for lack of a better term, your surf truck, your adventure lifestyle truck. The sort of truck you take when you want to take your bikes or your snowboards or your dogs out on a grand adventure. It's not the kind of truck that you would take to, let's say, Home Depot and fill up with rocks. So this is much more of a crossover with a bed than a truck with a bed. Does that make sense? And that's the #1 difference. And let me show you what I mean by that. Now you might be thinking to yourself, a truck bed is a truck bed, but you'd be wrong because an adventure truck has all kinds of clever features. And even though this Hyundai Santa Cruz bed is the exact same size as the Maverick bed, it does cool things like this. Yep, there's a cover. So if you're picking up your friends at the airport, or if you need to keep stuff dry, or if you need to keep your surfboard safe, even though I don't think a surfboard would fit with the tonneau cover closed, but let's say you had a short surfboard, I'm not a surfer as you can tell, then this would be very practical because under here is a little compartment that you could hide stuff in. And if you're a surfer, you could put your wetsuit in there so it doesn't get stinky in the cab and doesn't get lost in the bed of the truck. So yeah, not all truck beds are the same, and this is a very clever device that can be thought of as a giant trunk. Now this is a trucky truck bed, and we've actually had to line it with Line-X because from the factory it came painted, and that is no good because if you put rocks or anything scratchy in there, you will scratch it up. And to prove my point, let me show you how this truck bed opens. Oh yeah, that is a resounding truck bed clank. And if you're not sure that I'm telling you the truth, check this out. Yep, that's a beer can opener, or well, maybe a Celsius opener. Do they come in glass bottles, Cole? Oh, never mind, they're aluminum. But this is much more of a trucky truck bed than the Santa Cruz over there. While we're waiting for my video car to go ahead of me, I do have a confession to make. I recently went to Sweden and almost slept in the ice hotel, but the cold experience did do something strange. There's a little bit of hair right there. You see that? It just kind of poofs out sideways. And I've even been using my wife's conditioner, and it just stays poofy. So if you know how to keep your hair from poofing out, let me know. All right, now back to the review. I'm in the Santa Cruz, and this is a comfortable place to be. I have just turned down my heated seats, and I have turned down my heated steering wheel because it is 16 degrees today. It's pretty cold. And I have to say, I do like this transmission lever much better than the little rotary knob in the Maverick. So if you're a lever kind of guy or gal as opposed to a knob kind of guy or gal, then maybe the Santa Cruz is for you. Now the Santa Cruz comes with two engine options. There's a 2.5 liter and a 2.5 liter turbo. And this is a turbo, which does a lot of very untruck things, like have paddle shifters and a dual clutch transmission. And as much as I love dual clutch transmissions on a racetrack, not so good off-road, because when we took this off-road, we actually had one of these, not the refresh, but the first non-refresh gen, it did overheat the transmission. So I would say if you're looking to go off-road and you don't need to zip around and race your neighbor's F-150 Tacoma, then I would go with the non-turbo version, because there you get a traditional 8-speed automatic, and that's much better in traffic. It's much better off-road. It's just much more easy to live with, at least in my mind. The other thing I like about these little compact trucks is that they're easy to live with. And I've already said they're easy to park, easy to garage, but They're also easy on the wallet. Now, these two trucks aren't exactly apples to apples because that's the hybrid all-wheel drive and this is the more expensive turbo, I believe, as tested. Let me look at the Monroney here. We're looking at a total of $44,105. So not exactly inexpensive, but then the average new car price now is almost $50,000. So in that regard, it seems somewhat affordable, but I can't help but feel that today every vehicle, and that includes trucks, is $10,000 too expensive. So how does it drive? Well, good view out the back, and you'll note the back there is a little tiny window that you can open up, which the Maverick doesn't have, but the slope of the front windscreen is much greater. Plenty of headroom, good shoulder room, super comfy seats, but the little 4-cylinder turbo is a little bit on the agrarian side. You may be wondering, why has everybody gone to 4-cylinder turbos? And the reason for that is because they're kind of the sweet spot for power versus fuel economy. 22 combined, maybe not great fuel economy. Let me floor it. Oh yeah. I almost ran into my chase truck. Yeah, this is definitely the faster of the two. And I'm not even in sport mode. So let me put it in sport mode. Not snow mode. Normal sport. Let's try it again, sport. There goes the dual clutch. Very eager to shift. And there goes the chase truck. So, drives well, steers well, brakes well. There's a saying I like to say. Well, that's a horrible thing to say. There's something I like to say about trucks and how they drive. When people ask me, how does an F-150 or a Silverado drive? The answer is like a truck. And this, the answer is like a crossover, which it's based on. So if you love the Santa Fe or the Tucson, then this will feel right at home. It's not very trucky, especially not heavy-duty trucky, where you've got live axles and a lot of hauling capability. And speaking of hauling capability, this truck, along with the Maverick, are surprisingly capable. Get this, 1,411 pounds of payload. Now, trucks do two things, right? They tow and they haul. And 1,411 pounds of payload, and the Maverick's just a little bit less. That is full-size truck territory. In fact, there are a lot of full-size trucks, I'm talking about Silverados, F-150, Ram 1500s, that don't even have as much payload as this. So if you're looking for a lifestyle truck, especially that lifestyle is overlanding, and you need to put a lot of things in here, in other words, batteries and cookware and tents and rooftop tents, then I can't think of a better vehicle to do that than these little compact trucks. Forget about the mid-size truck. I want to say a Tacoma gets like, well, I know that a Gladiator with the diesel, which would seem an ideal overlanding vehicle, has like 850 pounds of payload, which is not a lot. I mean, payload is just how much stuff you can put in here and how much it weighs before, you start going over payload, which is not a good thing. Now, both of these compact trucks can be had with all-wheel drive. In essence, they're about the same size, so if you're truck curious, they're easy to park both at the local grocery store and in your garage, but there is a very significant difference under the hood. Now, the Santa Cruz comes with two powertrains, and this top of the line has a 2.5 liter turbo that produces 281 horsepower. That's quite a bit. Now, the Maverick is unique because for 2025, it can be had with all-wheel drive and hybrid. Now, the Santa Cruz has a sister car that has that, but for some reason they don't put it in the Santa Cruz. But here, you can have both all-wheel drive and a hybrid. And what that means in real-world terms is that this truck is rated at 22 mpg combined, and this one is rated at 37 mpg combined because it's a hybrid, and that is by far the best truck fuel economy you will find, no matter what size truck. Now, the downside is this does have CVT, all right, planetary gear set, CVT, which isn't great, and only 191 horsepower, or 90 less than that one.
Just had my teeth cleaned.
Yes, they're veneers. I had really ugly teeth as a kid, and my wife was like, "Hey, you're on YouTube," and I'm like, "So what?" She said, "You gotta look good." So there you go. Too white? Not white enough? I told the dentist I didn't want to be like, one of those toothpaste salesmen where it's just so fake. So is it fake or not? Anyway, I'm now in the Maverick, and full disclosure, we paid our own money for this guy. So this guy we bought for a long-term review, and the reason we did that is because we wanted to test how good the hybrid system is with the all-wheel drive. As you can tell, there's a lot of snow in Colorado. You need all-wheel drive. And I was a little disappointed because I wanted to get the Tremor, which is the off-road worthy one, which cost about $40,000, so that would be more apples to apples to the Santa Cruz. But if you get the hybrid and you get the all-wheel drive, you can't get the off-roady stuff, and that's because this hybrid is tailored to give you good fuel economy, and 37 combined is really good. But keep in mind, guys, it's been super cold here. Like I said, right now it's 16 degrees, and last night it was, I want to say, -3. So let me look at my numbers here, and I'll tell you what we're getting since I filled it up. So trip fuel economy, since I filled this up, we've gotten 30.9, which is a far cry from 34. And let me go back, and I can even look at what we've gotten since we first bought the truck, and that is trip number 2, and that is 33.9. So as you can tell, even in the hybrid, cold weather really does kill fuel economy. So let's talk about the difference in how this drives compared to the Santa Cruz. This is definitely more truck-like. I don't mean that it's bumpy and rough and hard to steer or any of that. It just feels more utilitarian, more like a tool, and less like a toy. Not that the Santa Cruz is a toy, but it certainly is much more of a lifestyle vehicle. In here, I've been dragging my dog around for the last month because now we have 2,557 miles on it, and most of those I've put on it, so it's kind of become my daily driver. And I have to say, it's become one of my favorite trucks of the year, simply because it's the exact opposite of the Santa Cruz. Everything in here feels more practical, feels cheaper, which it is, and feels less precious. So I don't feel bad when, 105-pound Bernese Mountain Dog jumps in the back seat with his dirty paws. I know I would feel bad if that were the case in the Santa Cruz. The other thing that is not so good about the Maverick is this right here. I'm going to floor it. And this does have a planetary gear set, which is a CVT. And once again, almost rammed my chase car. So it's not that slow. I mean, I think he was accelerating pretty hard as well. But you do get that kind of engine drone as the car accelerates, and does its darndest to give you the best fuel economy possible. I thought I would hate that more than I do, and the reason I don't necessarily hate it as much as I thought I would is because this is not a sports car. So there's never a time where I feel like, you know what, I need to race that Ford Lightning next to me, because of course I know he would kill me, and because when you're in a truck that is, more tool than toy, that's not something you do. In terms of steering, in terms of ride, in terms of braking, like I said, it drives like a truck. No, it drives like the Escape on which it's based. So in that regard, it's very similar to the Santa Cruz. It's much more SUV or car-like than a truck. But by looking around and seeing, kind of the hard plastics and the basic design, cloth seats, relatively utilitarian functions of all the controls, this does give you the impression that it's much more of a truck than the Santa Cruz, so you tend to treat it like a truck. which, if you're looking for a starter truck, might be something that would suit you better. But that's really a decision that you have to make. Here's the thing about the Santa Cruz. If you didn't look in the rearview mirror and saw that bed back there, you would have no clue that this is indeed a truck. Now, I define a truck as a vehicle that has a bed. It doesn't have to be body on frame. It can be unibody, so let's just put that out there. But the interior is just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, look at these fine materials. Look at the size of the screen. You've got dual climate control, heated seats. You've got a heated steering wheel. You've got every creature comfort that you can put into a car, and yet it's a truck. You also have this kind of fine leather material. You have different drive modes. You can lock your rear center diff. You've got this very classic sunroof. But the message here is that you're really not in a truck. You're in a car that happens to have a bed. That's very different from the Maverick. Let me show you. Compared to the Santa Cruz, the Maverick is a Ford truck. And there's no doubt that this is a Ford truck. This interior is much more basic. Even though you also have dual screens, and then you have leather wrapped steering wheel, and since this is the XLT model, you have heated seats and a heated steering wheel. But look, no dual climate control. You don't have a nice beefy shifter, but just this rotary knob. No different drive modes like in the Santa Cruz. And in general, it feels like the kind of vehicle that if you run a small parts store, you would use to ferry parts back and forth. And that's not a bad thing, because once upon a time, trucks were the biggest tool in your toolbox. That might be the biggest cool toy in your toy box, but this definitely feels like the biggest tool in your toolbox. And the reason that can also be good is because you're not afraid to let the dog jump in, or get it dirty, or park it where maybe it could get scuffed. And that's what made trucks so magic. And maybe that's why, in general, this outsells the Santa Cruz at least 3-1, maybe even 4-1. So there you have it. Not 3, but 4 ways these two compact trucks are very different. Does that make one better than the other? No. They're not that different, but they do cater to the needs and wants of different truck buyers. And I would say, if you're truck curious, both of these would be great as your first truck, because they're not that hard to live with. They're not that expensive. Well, Santa Cruz is more expensive. It starts at about $30. The Maverick starts mid-20s and doesn't go quite as expensive. But in general, both of these are really fun and good trucks worthy of your first truck purchase. As always, this is Roman saying thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Ciao.